Hey y'all, welcome back. If this is your first time here, welcome to the Reset family. I'm Raven M. Harris, the host of the Reset with Raven podcast, where we talk about how to recover and reset after disappointment, discouragement, and devastation. Today's guest is a photographer who shot over 5,000 weddings, a filmmaker, and a writer. Daniel is creativity and artistry personified. Experiencing several resets, both personally and professionally, Daniel's story is the pursuit and the pursuit of his passion and journey, and believing more and more in yourself is a story I'm excited for everyone to hear. Welcome, Daniel.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that beautiful introduction. I'm very flattered.
Daniel, passion is a word that it's used frequently. I
Mhm.
feel like our society tells us to find your passion, the money will come, the happiness, the success will come, just be in your passion, and like the peace of mind will come. So we'll start with I would say a two-part question.
Mhm.
How did you discover your passion? And is it true that the money and happiness came along the path?
Well, I mean, the passion for me, in insofar as writing and trying to tell stories and things like that, it was kind of there from a very young age, but it was something that for a long time I was kind of afraid to explore, didn't really have a lot of avenues to connect with people about. So, I used to, when I was a kid, I would watch a lot of like old Godzilla movies, for instance, and found myself always trying to create stories in that universe and things like that. And just these little inklings of creativity and storytelling. But like I said, there wasn't really anybody in my family that had kind of gone on that path in life. So I was kind of always very tepid about it. I wasn't, going full swing into it. And as I got older, I was had a really close friend who was into film and sort of helped me get the strength to like switch majors in college at the last second and get into the film program there. And, to kind of go into the jump ahead to like the second part with the money and everything else, I'd say when I'm in the creative space, like when I'm on a set or I'm working on like a music video project or anything that just lets me kind of tell a creative story, the happiness is there, like the all of the good things are there. But, up until this point, even now, I always tell people it's like I've had a long like path in this field, but like merging the creativity and the like financial stability is honestly still not there even to this day. It's one of those things where it's like, I've had to do weddings for a long time, I've had to do corporate video for a long time, which is still in my, like, wheelhouse, but those are the things that have been the more, like, supporting pieces of it all. So, I try not to measure it by, like, okay, you know, I'm not successful until I'm making, like, millions of dollars or something, I measure it more in just, like, I know this is where I need to be because when I'm in that space, I am feeling the best about myself. I feel the happiest, the most natural. And, it's a hard path to take at the same time, trying to be creative because there are so many folks out there that are in the same space. So trying to, differentiate yourself and do all these things to try to stick out from a huge plethora of other individuals who are trying to make it in this field is tough. So for me, it's one of those things where I'm still getting to that level. But I love that like pursuit because, like I said, it's just you just know that it's like this is the thing. Because there's nothing else that excites me like the way sitting down to start writing a book or writing a screenplay or being on a set or helping see a movie come to life. Like, I could just do that in my sleep at this point because I just love it so much. It's just such an innate thing internally for me.
Was there a moment where everything clicked for you where you're like, oh, this is it. This is my sweet spot? Because I think so many people are still trying to figure out what's their thing or what's even, we could even go deeper, like, what's the point of it all? Like life. So they still haven't found their thing. Was there something like, or describe that emotion or that feeling where you need, like, this is what I'm here to do. This is my happy spot.
Yeah, I mean, even that took a very, very long time for me. I felt like there was pieces that got close to that, like, when I switched majors and when I was in school doing film, but like really the it didn't all come together for me until honestly the start of everything with COVID and the shutdowns, because that was the first time I was really able to sit down with myself and take all of these years of experience and sort of pent up emotions, feelings, and sort of just hone in on what I needed to do. Up until that point, I was constantly telling myself, okay, I want to write a full feature film script and I want to start working on novels and things like that. But I finally, had that time and that headspace because, there just wasn't, you were stuck at home. So I just was like, this is what we got to do. And that was the point for me when it finally all came together and any like questioning that I had had up until that point in my life was completely gone because the second I started writing, it just happened so naturally. And there were so many like setbacks and things that I had in my life with like relationships and stuff like that over the years that it was such a cathartic experience sort of talking about that on the page that even that in and of itself, the therapeutic side of it was just like so freeing for me that like I was able to let go of things that I wasn't able to let go for years, even with seeing someone and talking to a therapist and stuff like that, nothing compared to just getting it out on the page. So that was my like aha moment back then was just like, this is it, this is the end all beat all. Like nothing else is as happy and as joyful for me as it is right here, sitting with my laptop, just working on a story.
I like that you use the term even therapeutic because I found that this podcast is that for me. When I think about like inspiration, what keeps me going, and just something that like lights me up to have these type of conversations with people, because you also said earlier like that it's been a long path, and people that may see the outcome or see some of your success and see all of the great things that you're creating, they often don't know what went into it. They don't know
Hmm.
the time, maybe the tears, the frustration, the things that you wrote, the many pages that you wrote that maybe didn't see the time of day or didn't make it to the film project or didn't make it in the book. People don't know all that goes into creating a project, or being vulnerable, even because I would say that there's a lot of vulnerability even just in this conversation, and as you talk about putting things on the paper, because it's like here's the time where I don't have to, no one's judging me, it's just me just expressing and putting these things out here.
Hmm.
And that's one of the things I really enjoy about the podcast for me. I'm curious to know, when you talked about like putting the things on paper and like somewhat of like an awakening or aha moment, as you started to write and things started to flow. Um, is there anything inside of you that you had to reset? Like what allowed you? Was it you giving yourself, permission? Was it maybe hitting your version of rock bottom? Was it that, well, I need to do something different or something new? Is there something inside of you or outside of you that had to change or reset for you to have like that freeing, like, I just want to just write?
Yeah, I mean, it was a culmination of a lot of things that sort of came about that led to that specific moment. One of those being around 2016, 2017, somewhere in there, I had someone that I had worked on my senior thesis film when I was getting out of college with, and they were just catching up. They were like, "Hey, how you been?" All that stuff. And I sort of was telling them, "Oh, this is what I'm doing. I'm doing like wedding videography and all this kind of stuff." And you know, they sort of had this response like, "Oh, that's a shame." And, at that point, I was like, financially, I was in a good spot. Like, that's what was nice about it. But, I was kind of taken aback by that. I was just like, yeah, I mean, you're not entirely wrong because, she had seen the film and knew my capabilities. So coming from that background, she was kind of just like, I know you can do more with that, than what you're doing. And so that was like the first step, away from like the thinking, okay, this is, wedding videography and like this is what we're gonna do and this is how we're gonna make money. And the next step was really in 2018. I had switched insurance because I finally, was off of my parents' insurance and everything, and I was with a different like medical group. And I was born with a condition known as aortic valve stenosis, which essentially just means the aortic valve doesn't pump blood out of the heart correctly. Some of it leaks back in, so it's basically just a leaky valve. And in 2018, they did an echocardiogram and an EKG. And previously, I'd always thought, okay, I'm not going to need surgery until like I'm in my 50s. That was always kind of what I was told. And this doctor was like, oh no, like we're way closer to this surgery date than that. His inkling was like a few years, which inevitably he was not wrong about. Um, and that was a huge wake up call because I was just like, I'm gonna need to get open heart surgery. And I know we're in a very amazing medically advanced time, but they're cutting you open. The heart is there. It's just like there's risk. And so it was just like made me really reflect on what I was doing with my life. And I was just like, man, I don't think this is what I need to be doing. Like, I really think I need to focus on this creativity because, like, it's always there, but I was just kind of hiding away from it for a long time. And so then, the final point was what I'd mentioned before with everything with COVID and just having this like time of just being locked down and not able to have much contact with people. And that was, the final push, between COVID and then also still battling with some of the scars that I had from my longest relationship I've had in my life, uh, really pushed me to just say, this is scary. Yeah. This is going to take a lot to make happen. But rather than looking at it as this obstacle, I kind of just looked at it like, okay, I'll write a few pages here, I'll write a few pages there. In the in betweens, I'll think about what I want to do with the characters and the story beats and stuff like that. And it was just a slow process that sort of built up on itself. And it was incredibly freeing. And for the first time in a very long time, I felt like, okay, this is the path that I've been wanting to take for a long time, and these are the steps that I need to take because, up until then, it was always just like, this feels like a lot. I don't want to do it, or just starting something and then giving up really quickly. But finally, just like having that internal discipline, because even that was a process. I mean, in my younger days, it was like if I felt like if I couldn't bust out a whole script in one day, then why bother? Because like I should just be this phenom who can just write an entire feature film script. So even that, it took some cultivating to get that discipline to get to that point.
Wow. So I was just like chronologically following when you said 2016, a friend came up to you and said, that's a shame. 2018, the insurance, and now you're getting some testing from a cardiologist. And then 2020, of course, the pandemic. It makes me think about like how things happen and we at the time may or may not know why they're happening,
Hmm.
but how they're lining up to prepare us for something, to position us for something. when I even think about my life, it made me question a lot of things. Like, okay, what are you doing?
Mhm.
Why are you doing that? What does this mean? Is this here to teach you something? Did you miss the lesson before? Is that why you're like going through this again?
Uh-huh.
Um, One of the things you said that it like clicked for me when you said someone said like that's a shame. Someone out like basically someone outside of yourself seeing all of the greatness, the capabilities, maybe the passion that you have in something, but you being afraid or maybe in the past maybe have dipped a toe but not like went for it. That was very interesting to me because I feel like I've had certain experiences like that where people are like, well, I see what you're doing, but we all know you're supposed to be doing X, Y, and Z. And it's like, ugh. It's uncomfortable. It's I don't know. You can kind of look at it. I'll use the term like it's flattering to the state, like someone sees like a skill set or a talent or a gift, but then it
Mhm.
also makes you like look at yourself like, wow, everybody else sees it, but maybe its insecurities are preventing me from doing it. Could you talk a little bit about another thing came to my mind too. So look, I'm hitting you with all these double questions,
It's
but
okay.
you talked a little bit about earlier finances and doing things that aren't necessarily your passion, but they're within your wheelhouse or you have the skill set. Because I am, when you said that, I was like, oh, you're speaking my life. I'm doing some things right now because I'm an adult. I have to have income,
Mhm.
and it's in my wheelhouse. I have the ability to do. I have the experience, but I know, and probably even people that really know me, like, it's not my passion. It's not something that lights me up. It's something that in the meantime, until the thing that I love can generate the income to sustain myself, it's something I need to do in the meantime. Can you talk to us about like what that's like for you and how you navigate that or make peace with that? Both the like someone seeing something in you and like, hey, why aren't you doing what you're really skilled at? And then I wouldn't say being forced, but as an adult or as a responsible person, have doing things that are generating income in the meantime.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm such a big fan of just like I don't want to call it like tough love, but just like that I think we all have this tendency to avoid like saying things like that. And I think that's some of the best, like, things you can do for someone. Of course, like, don't just go around being like, "Hey, you're I know you're better than this," and being very, like, uh, obtuse about everything. But, when you see somebody that you know is, like, capable of something, let them give them that vote of confidence in a good way, in a sense that, like, they can grow from it, you know? Like, for instance, I have a close friend who's over in the UK, and she was going through a really tough time last year, but she is an amazing, like, she does animation and just an amazing animator. So, like, every chance I would get, I would try to reach out and just like see how things were going. And I know there was like some struggles again with the money part, and just kind of reminding her that it's just like, look, I know like this is a tough industry, but like you are so talented, and don't sell yourself short, just keep pushing and stuff like that. And she just recently got a job at Aardman Animation in the UK, which are the people who do Wallace and Gromit, and it's like an amazing opportunity. But that took time and a huge amount of rejections before she got into that place. But now that she's there, it's like off to the races almost. So I think it's important that like we have these kind of conversations, even if they might be a little uncomfortable sometimes, to like let people know that like, hey, I've seen what you do. Like, don't take the time to just like let the world break you down. Of course, don't go blindly, jumping into something that you might not be prepared for, but at the same time, don't shy away from it either. But I think it's a lot of vulnerability that you have to put yourself into in order to make that happen. And so for me, like, going into the finances part of it, for me, what really made me feel good was like, okay, I was doing weddings, I was doing freelance work, and I was making good money. It got me the ability to like buy my house that I'm in now, and it supplied all of these things to prepare me for life, and be able to afford things and buy a new car and stuff like that back in the day. And so all of those things, so that was always my reasoning behind it, was just like, look, it's giving me this ability to afford things, to live a pretty normal life with everything. Um, but the problem is just like even I knew it wasn't the thing for me. And so what really initially helped, and this was what went into like my first book that I released, which was a poetry collection. Um, that's what I needed to do to get through a lot of it. I was writing a lot of pretty, darker poems that, because I wasn't super happy. And, I had times where I was like, drinking a lot on the weekdays with like friends and stuff like that. And I wasn't, full blown into any kind of alcoholism, but I could tell that like I was taking more like doing things that were a little more risky, that like weren't super healthy, all because whether I was acknowledging it or not, I just wasn't super duper happy with like what I wanted to do, and I knew I could achieve more. So like that for me, getting that conversation done was like everything I knew in myself coming to light through someone else. And it was so insanely valuable because it was that voice inside of me that was able to then have acknowledgement, because I knew someone else out there saw what I knew I had inside of me, uh, and giving me a vote of confidence in a way that was firm and just kind of what I needed to hear. Um, so it was insanely helpful for getting things going. And then, yeah, I mean, even now, it's not like I've completely stepped away from wedding filming or corporate videography. Like I still do that, but not to the same level that I was before. I'm focusing a lot more on the creative stuff, and I'm finding just balance. Like that's the thing for my life now is like rather than swaying from one extreme to the other, I'm just constantly trying to find, okay, I know we don't like this, but we can do X number of things like this a year, and it'll make us X amount of money, which will help us out in the long run, which can then go into the art projects and building up the name recognition there and everything. So it's been a nice transition into like just not going from I got to be 100% in weddings or I got to be 100% in creativity. It's like we can all, we can do everything. It can all just kind of level out. And it's been a nice transition finding that balance in life again.
Thank you for sharing that and placing some reality back into life that it's not always, or it's frequently like not always, not a all or nothing, or I got to
Hmm.
do 100% of this because that sounds good. But it like life doesn't work like that in terms of when you're trying to build it may be I've heard this phrase before, the thing that leads to the thing,
Hmm.
or some of these, as you talked about the corporate projects or the weddings, maybe that's the resources that fuel the other things. Or who knows, maybe you're at a wedding or working with a corporate client and they help create the pathway or create the connection or the relationship or the introduction that leads to something even different or bigger or what you actually are passionate for. You never know how like it could be the thing that leads to the thing. And what I hear you also speaking of, as you were talking about the things that you're doing right now, is back to that internal discipline. So knowing like, okay, I have to position myself right now from a financial perspective, and just also too you're building additional skill sets, making connections in those areas as you work on the things that you are more passionate about. I also we alluded to it a little bit, but I want you to tell us a little bit more about your health, because you mentioned that you had went to the doctors in 2018, and then COVID happened. Talk to us more about what, hearing that from the physicians were like. And we talked offline. You had to have open heart surgery. How did that impact you, from just like thinking about your life, your passion, your career, personally, professionally? How did that really impact you?
Yeah, I mean, when I first got that message, it was terrifying because, I had no inkling of what would be involved with open heart surgery, how that was going to go. So when I switched insurances back to a better insurance plan, mainly because I knew that this might be something coming, I went to a different cardiologist, got a second opinion, and she pretty much confirmed what was being said, which was just like, yeah, we are not looking too great with this valve. So moving forward, I was getting echocardiograms and EKGs every 6 months and just getting kind of like check ins with that. And, we were just putting it off just as long as we could, especially through COVID. And, COVID was a whole left field thing for me as well, just because it's like, I don't know what this is going to do health wise. And then I have this heart condition. Like, how is it all going to be impacted? So I was like very, very careful through all of that and, made sure to get the vaccine as soon as I could and all that stuff. Um, but yeah, then finally, 2021 in December, I got my 6-month echo, and at first she was like, "Okay, I think we can wait another 6 months and we'll revisit this or whatever." And the next day she called me and was just like, I looked back at the results, and I really do think like now is the time like to get surgery." And I kind of had this feeling like even before she called me back, I was like, I think it's time. Like, it was just one of those
Mhm.
weird things in my brain. I was like, I just feel like something is amiss, like, I don't know. And so, yeah, she was like, "We gotta set this up," and went to the University of Maryland here in Baltimore, and, they have, like, a great cardiac surgery unit, and so they set it for January 14th, and that whole period of, like, when I met with them and set it all up till having the surgery was just weird. Like, I felt like I had to go on overdrive for a while. Like, I was just, like, trying to get things moving with my film projects and stuff, so I was just, like, every day just emailing people and trying to have meetings because I was just like, "I don't know what's going to happen," like, I want some other people to be involved, like, just in case something happens and there's, like, a fallback for this project that maybe it'll still see the light of day. It was, like, all this kind of self-reflection, looking back on my life and saying, like, "Have I done enough? Have I put out enough of myself on a creative scale, just in case something happens?" And so it was a lot of those type of thoughts, and then especially, the night before and the day of the surgery, I made sure to like I wrote like a whole long note for my parents and just in case and kind of let them know where my thoughts were with everything and just left it at that. And so for me it was like step 1 was waking up. And I can say when I woke up it was very surreal because of course you're very out of it, and I just remember my mom was in the room and all the doctors were in the room. And the first thing I did was they still had the line in my throat, so I couldn't talk yet because they didn't take the breathing apparatus out. And they had like the little pointer card. And I just remember I looked over at my mom and I was trying to say something, and she like hands me the little pointer card, and I just spelled out like "I love you" to my mom. That was the first because I was just like, I was like, "I'm alive," It's amazing that I'm still alive and got through everything, and even the surgeon had come in that day or the next day and really told me, he was just like, "Yeah, that valve was really rough. I don't know how much longer you probably really ideally would have had with that, had we not done anything now." So it's just one of those things where, like, I tell people all the time where it's like, if it wasn't for where we are right now with technology, like, like, this year probably would have been it. That's what's so crazy to think about. Like, in a natural world without modern medicine, that valve would have just given out, and I probably would have had a heart attack, and that really would have been the end of it. But now I have this mechanical valve, and it ticks away just fine, and I've been healing slowly but surely ever since, and it's just been an amazing thing. But also, again, it creates that, like, drive where you're still telling yourself, like, okay, this is part 2 basically of my life. How can we find that balance? How can we make just things happen better, quicker, and just smarter than before? And it just takes away that last bit of just, like, I guess, naivety in a sense, where it's like, this is a second chance. This is how I can continue on doing things, and it's just an amazing, like, new lease that I have at this point.
So grateful, grateful that you are here. It's like, and the beat goes on, part
Uh-huh.
two. Daniel, tell us, what are you working on right now?
So right now I have a novel that'll be coming out on June 6th of this year, called Focus Puller, which it's semi autobiographical, but it really kind of explores, like, a single character and exploring, like, small vignettes throughout his life, growing up and as he got older, but then also taking pages from the people that he's had relationships with and their reflections on him at the same time. So it's introspective, but it's also got these different opinions from people that he's dated or had, like, relationships with. So it's sort of like it's a novel that's telling a story in a sense, it's very disjointed, but also reflecting on itself by saying, like, yes, these moments in life are beautiful and everything, but you also have to, take the good with the bad with people. There's always gray areas. So exploring a lot of that. And then on top of that, I have 2 feature film scripts that I've written that I'm right now in the process of, like, trying to get produced, trying to find the financing for, and also just actively putting the scripts into various, like, national kind of screenwriting competitions and things like that in order to try to gain some traction, for those projects because, more than anything, the film industry is a very fickle fickle place. And so, you'll have great talks with people and get close to things. And then, one thing or another pops up and then the project is kind of back to square one. So it's been a big learning process for me this last year and a half, but it's been a pretty cool journey with that, just those projects in themselves and sort of like learning how the bigger industry works and stuff like that. So those are the 3 kind of main projects that I have right now in my life.
That's exciting. I am super excited to follow your work and get your book as well.
Thank you.
I don't know if I shared this with you when we first met. I love like theater. I love like looking at the development of a story and how I'm not skilled in that type of thing, but I take a lot of interest in it and intrigue in it. And my favorite thing is to actually watch documentaries because I love just the whole storytelling and story development. So I'm super interested and looking forward to all of your work that you have coming out. So before I ask my final question, please let our listeners and our viewers know where they can find you online.
Yeah, so the easiest thing is usually my website, which is tonyproductions.com, and that's TOTONY productions.com. From there, you can, of course, like, it links over to, like, the Instagram, the Twitter, on LinkedIn, Facebook, all of those different social media platforms. And you can find most things just by even searching, like, Two Tony Productions online. And that's the easiest way to just see what's going on, updates and all that good stuff.
Perfect. And the final question is, what is the greatest lesson you've learned in your reset journey?
Oh man, that's a big question. I mean, I think for me it's like it's kind of a two-parter with that. One is obviously life is very short. I've learned that several times, whether that be with my own experiences or dealing with loss in my life and seeing like youth kind of taken away. So realizing that life is short, but then also life is amazing. um, I say like, I tell everybody, it's like you wake up every day. It's like you already won the lottery in a sense. You're
Mhm.
here, and so just for me, that in and of itself is always such a beautiful thing. So those are, I'd say, like the two biggest things is just like I don't try not to take it for granted, but I also try to just enjoy every little thing, right? Even making dinner, is like it's fun. It's like I'm making dinner, like I'm eating this meal that I made for myself. This is amazing. Like I can do this, and I can live in a world where I am capable of all of this. So it's just like, it does take getting a little like, for lack of a better word, beat down, when you're recovering from surgery and it's hard for you to even get out of bed because like you're so weak. You do really say, wow, like just getting up naturally and being able to move about is just like it's a gift, and so that's what I always try to tell myself is like even on days where it's easy to get frustrated or maybe I'm not feeling 100%. I always try to find, like, something just little teeny tiny to just be like, "Hey, like, I have this," and that's pretty outstanding. So, that's what I would say is just, like, just knowing that we're in a beautiful place and a beautiful time, and there's lots of beauty out there. It's just a matter of opening your eyes to it and then also listening, I'd say if nothing else, like opening your mind to thoughts from others or things that you're interacting with. I always have tried to be like a constant student of life and just saying like, okay, even things I might not agree with, it's like, that's something to store in the noggin and just kind of use that for maybe something in the future. You never know. So yeah, so like I said, I just try to love life as much as I can.
Perfect. Thank you so much. This was great. All right. Daniel said so much for all of us to reflect on, an opportunity for us all to be a student. These are the words I hope you take and reflect on this week: acknowledgement, vulnerability, confidence, movement, and self reflection. Thank you all for listening and tuning in. As always, a reset is always available to you.